Tonight, I want to tell you a story. It's about a little girl who wanders into a world she was never supposed to find. A world of spirits and gods and ancient magic hidden just behind the ordinary surface of things. It's a story about being lost and being brave, even when you don't feel brave at all. So, settle in. Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you want to. I'll paint everything for you. Tonight's story is called The Girl Who Walked into the Spirit World. Let's begin. There was a little girl named Chihiro, and she was sitting in the back seat of her parents' car, furious. Her family was moving to a new town, new house, new school, new everything. And Chihiro had not asked for any of it. She was curled up against the car door with that look on her face. You know the look. That stubborn, helpless anger children get when the world has made a decision without asking them, and there is absolutely nothing they can do. She was holding a bouquet of flowers, pink and white, a goodbye gift from her best friend. There was a little card tucked inside, and Chihiro had read it 100 times already. She held the flowers a little tighter, pressed them against her chest, and that one small gesture tells you everything about this girl. She holds on to things. She is not ready to let go of anything. Her parents were chatting in the front seats, cheerful and oblivious the way parents sometimes are when they've decided that change is good for everyone. Her father was driving too fast on back roads, taking a shortcut he wasn't entirely sure about. Her mother was reading the map, trees blurred past the windows. And then, gradually, something shifted. The road got narrower. The trees got older, taller, closer together. There were small stone shrines along the roadside, half hidden in moss and fallen leaves. Little houses for spirits, the kind that most people walk past without a second thought. Chihiro noticed them. She was the only one who did. The car came to a stop. The road ended at a tunnel. It was wide and dark, made of old plaster that had cracked and stained with age. And there was a strange wind coming through it, warm and steady, almost like breathing. Chihiro's father wanted to explore. Her mother shrugged and said, "Sure, why not?" Chihiro did not want to go in there. She said so. She tugged at her mother's arm, but they were already walking, and she was just a child, so she followed. Because what else can you do when you're 10 and the grown-ups have decided? And they walked into the tunnel together, the three of them, their footsteps echoing off the curved walls. And already there was this feeling, this wonderful, terrible feeling, that they were crossing into somewhere else, that the world behind them was quietly closing, like a book being shut. On the other side of the tunnel, there was a wide, open meadow, bright green grass, blue sky, a warm wind that smelled of wildflowers, and in the distance, a cluster of buildings, what looked like a small town, but empty, completely, eerily empty. Chihiro's parents strode ahead, curious. They found a street lined with restaurant stalls, and the stalls were full of food. Not old food, fresh, steaming, impossibly delicious-looking food. Plates and bowls piled high with things that glistened and steamed and smelled of ginger and soy and honey. And nobody was there. No cooks, no customers, no one at all. Her father sat down and started eating. Her mother joined him. They said they'd pay later when someone showed up. They ate with this hungry, careless enthusiasm that was just a little too eager, a little too abandoned. Their mouths too wide, their hands grabbing too fast. Something about it was wrong, though Chihiro couldn't have told you what. She wouldn't touch the food. That instinct again. The quiet, stubborn instinct that something here was very wrong. She wandered away from her parents, up a winding path, and found herself standing on a bridge. A long, red, beautiful bridge, arching over empty space toward the most extraordinary building she had ever seen. A bathhouse, massive and ornate, rising up tier after tier like a palace made of dark wood and tile, with balconies and paper lanterns and steam curling from 100 windows. It looked ancient and grand, and somehow alive, even though there was nobody around. And standing on that bridge, staring up at that impossible building, Chihiro saw a boy. He appeared out of nowhere, thin, serious, dark-haired, not much older than her, and his face went pale when he saw her, and he said with real urgency in his voice, "You shouldn't be here. You need to leave, now, before it gets dark." "This is Haku." Remember his name. Chihiro ran, back through the streets, back toward her parents. The sun was setting fast, much too fast, and the shadows were stretching and the air was thickening and the empty stalls were beginning to glow with lantern light, and shapes were appearing everywhere, translucent, half-formed, drifting through the streets like smoke, slowly becoming solid, spirits, hundreds of them. The town was waking up. She found her parents still sitting at the food stall, still eating. But they weren't her parents anymore. They were pigs, 2 enormous pigs in her parents' clothes, their snouts buried in the food, grunting and chewing and eating without end. They didn't recognize her. They didn't even look up. And Chihiro screamed and turned and ran, and the world had changed around her, and she was completely alone. Now I need you to picture something truly beautiful, because the bathhouse, the spirit bathhouse, is one of the most extraordinary places you could ever imagine. It rises in tiers, like a wedding cake made of dark wood and glazed tile. Each floor is a different world. The lower floors are where the workers live. The boiler room, the kitchens, the servants' quarters, all cramped and steaming and busy. Above those are the bathing halls, vast and echoing, where spirits come from all across the land to soak and rest and be made clean again. And at the very top, behind a pair of ornate doors, lives the woman who owns it all, the witch. We'll get to her. Chihiro was terrified. She was fading, literally becoming transparent, her hands see-through, her body dissolving, because she didn't belong in this world, and the world was trying to erase her. Haku found her again. He gave her something to eat, a small berry from this world, and it made her solid again. And then he told her what she had to do. She had to get a job in the bathhouse. She had to go to the boiler room and find work. It was the only way to survive here, the only way to save her parents. So she went. And the boiler room was wonderful. It was a vast, cramped, impossibly hot cavern deep in the belly of the bathhouse, and it was run by a creature named Kamaji. He looked something like a very old man, but with 6 long, spindly arms that stretched and reached across the entire room, pulling herbs and powders from hundreds of tiny wooden drawers, feeding coal to a roaring furnace, mixing bath salts with the careful precision of someone who had been doing this for 1,000 years, maybe longer. He was grumpy. He told Chihiro the bathhouse didn't hire humans. But there was a softness underneath the grumbling, the kind that certain old people have, where the complaints are just a habit and the kindness is the truth. And when a girl named Lin came to deliver his food, Kamaji told her to take Chihiro upstairs to see Yubaba. Lin was brash and kind in that particular way, the sort of person who complains about everything but would fight for you in a heartbeat without being asked. She led Chihiro through the bathhouse, through winding corridors full of strange workers, frog spirits in aprons, slug women carrying baskets, all of them recoiling at the smell of a human in their midst. And they rode an elevator up, floor after floor, past the steam and the noise and the clattering of the kitchens, until at last Chihiro stood alone before a pair of enormous wooden doors, and the doors opened by themselves. Yubaba's chambers were overwhelming. Chihiro walked through room after room of impossible luxury, gilded wallpaper, heavy European furniture, crystal chandeliers that tinkled softly in a wind that came from nowhere. It was all excessive, all a little grotesque, like walking through the inside of someone's greed. And then she found Yubaba. Yubaba was a tiny old woman with an enormous head. That's not a way of speaking. Her head was truly huge, with sharp, glittering eyes and a wide mouth and a nose like a bird of prey. She was terrifying in the way that truly powerful people can be terrifying. Not because she was loud or violent, but because she was completely in control and she knew it. And she wanted you to know it too. Chihiro asked for a job. Yubaba laughed at her. She mocked her. She tried to scare her away, sent magical flames chasing her across the room, slammed doors, shouted, but Chihiro asked again and again, with this trembling, stubborn persistence that is perhaps the bravest thing in the whole story. A 10-year-old girl standing before a witch who could destroy her with a flick of her finger, and she would not leave until she got what she needed. And Yubaba relented. She produced a contract. But here was the price, and this is important. This is the dark heart of the whole story. Yubaba took Chihiro's name. She stripped the characters away, one by one, peeling them from the contract like pulling petals from a flower. And when she was done, only a single syllable remained. From now on, Chihiro would be called Sen, just Sen. And Yubaba told her, almost carelessly, "Forget your real name, and you'll never find your way home." And that night, in a small room crowded with sleeping bathhouse workers, the girl who used to be Chihiro cried herself to sleep, and Haku came to her, silently, in the dark. He had kept her clothes, the ones she arrived in, carefully folded, and tucked inside them was the card from her bouquet, the goodbye card from her best friend, and written on it, in her friend's round handwriting, was her real name, Chihiro. Don't forget. What happens next is something rare and quiet. It's not really about adventure at all. It's about work, about the rhythm of scrubbing floors and carrying heavy buckets and being the lowest person in a place where nobody wants you there, and just doing it, getting through each day. Sen woke up before dawn. She hauled water. She scrubbed bathtubs the size of swimming pools on her hands and knees. She was clumsy and slow, and the other workers, the frog spirits, the slug women, the strange shapeless creatures in their uniforms, looked at her with open contempt. She smelled wrong to them. She moved wrong. She was human, and humans didn't belong here. But she kept working, and slowly, day by day, she found her footing. Then the stink spirit came. A customer arrived at the bathhouse one evening, and it was the most revolting thing anyone had ever encountered. A massive, shapeless blob of brown and purple sludge oozing across the floor, trailing filth, smelling so terrible, the spirits fled in every direction, and workers pressed cloths over their faces and gagged. Nobody wanted to go near it. And Yubaba, watching from her balcony above, assigned it to Sen, because of course she did. Sen had to prepare the largest tub. She had to pull the heavy lever that filled it with herbal water. She had to stand there, ankle deep in filth, as this enormous reeking creature oozed its way into the bath, filling the room with a stench you could almost feel. But then Sen noticed something. Sticking out of the creature's side, something hard, like a splinter buried deep in swollen flesh. She pulled on it, and it wouldn't come. She pulled harder. The whole bathhouse came to help. A long chain of workers hauling on ropes, everyone pulling together. And out came a bicycle, and then a pile of garbage, fishing line, bottles, cans, old rusted appliances, tangled nets, broken furniture. More and more, an impossible amount of human waste pouring out of this poor creature like a river being unclogged. Because that's what it was. Not a stink spirit at all. It was a river spirit, a god, ancient and sacred, who had been so poisoned and choked with human garbage that it had nearly drowned in its own body. When the last piece of rubbish was pulled free, the creature transformed. For one shimmering, beautiful moment, it became what it truly was, a long, translucent dragon made of pure, clean water, ancient and grateful. It looked at Sen, a real look, the kind of look that passes between two beings who have done something important together. And it smiled, and then it rose into the air and flew away, leaving behind a trail of fresh water and a small, strange gift. That night, the bathhouse celebrated, and for the first time, the workers looked at Sen with something other than contempt. Now, I need to tell you about No-Face. He's important. He had been there from the beginning, lingering at the edges of things easy to overlook. A tall, dark, nearly transparent figure standing alone on the bridge, watching the bathhouse with a blank white mask for a face. The expression on the mask was neither happy nor sad, just waiting, as if he had been waiting for a very long time. During the chaos of the stink spirit, Sen had held the bathhouse door open for him, a tiny, thoughtless act of kindness. She hadn't even noticed she'd done it, but No-Face noticed, and now No-Face was inside. At first he was gentle, almost pitiful. He followed Sen around at a distance, like a stray animal that has been shown warmth once and doesn't know what to do with it. He offered her things, bath tokens, which were valuable currency in the bathhouse. He held them out in his dark, formless hands and waited, hopeful. Sen said no thank you. She didn't need them. But the other workers did need them. No-Face discovered that he could produce gold from his hands, handfuls of it, glittering and heavy. And the moment the gold appeared, everything changed. The workers swarmed him. They brought him food, mountains of it, plate after plate. They flattered him and bowed to him and competed for his favor. And No-Face ate and ate and grew. He swelled into an enormous bloated creature, his little white mask now perched absurdly on a body the size of a room. His voice, once a thin whisper, became thick and slurred and desperate. He swallowed workers whole. He demanded more food, more gold, more everything. "I want Sen," he kept saying. "Bring me Sen." And all he ever really wanted was what Sen had given him on the bridge. A small, free, uncomplicated kindness. But nobody in the bathhouse knew how to give that. They only knew how to want. Sen went to him. She gave him a piece of the gift the river spirit had left behind. A small, bitter dumpling, a medicine of sorts. And No Face ate it, and it made him terribly sick, and he began to vomit up everything he had consumed. All the gold, all the food, all the workers he had swallowed, tumbling out of him alive and dazed. He chased Sen through the bathhouse, shrinking as he went, shedding the bloated form layer by layer, until finally he was just what he had been at the start. A thin, dark, silent figure in a white mask. And he followed Sen out of the bathhouse into the open air. Quiet again. Himself again. Whatever that was. Sen had somewhere she needed to go. She had to visit a witch named Zeniba, Yubaba's twin sister, who lived far away on the other side of a great still sea, and the only way to reach her was by train. Not an ordinary train. This one ran on tracks that lay just barely beneath the surface of the water. The sea stretched out in every direction, flat and silver and impossibly calm, and the train glided across it as quietly as a thought moving through a still mind. The sky was the color of late afternoon, pale gold fading slowly into lavender and then into a deep, soft blue. The water reflected everything, so it was hard to tell where the sea ended and the sky began. Sen sat by the window. No Face sat beside her, calm now, his mask turned toward the glass. A tiny creature, a little soot sprite that had been enchanted into the shape of a hopping bird, sat on her shoulder. There were other passengers on the train too. They were shadow people, translucent, featureless silhouettes who boarded and exited at small stations that seemed to float in the middle of nowhere. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were the gentle rocking of the train on the water and a piano melody so soft it barely existed. Nothing happened. That's the beautiful thing. For a long stretch of the journey, absolutely nothing happened at all. And somehow that was the most moving part of the whole story. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just sit still and let the journey carry you. Chihiro, Sen, was a little girl riding a train across an endless sea, going to face a witch she'd never met, with no certainty she would ever make it home. She might never see her parents again. She didn't know if she was brave or foolish or both. But the light through the window was beautiful, and the water was calm, and there was nowhere to go but forward. And that had to be enough. I think about that train whenever I'm in one of those quiet, uncertain moments in life, when you're moving towards something you can't quite see yet, and the only thing to do is sit by the window and watch the world go softly past. I should tell you about Haku, because his story has been flowing beneath everything else like an underground river, and now it surfaces. Haku worked for Yubaba. He was her apprentice, and he did things he wasn't proud of. He stole for her. He carried out her cruelties. He followed her orders with the cold efficiency of someone who had forgotten how to say no. The other workers in the bathhouse feared him. They said he was Yubaba's shadow. But there was another Haku, the one who appeared to Chihiro in quiet moments, who brought her food when she forgot to eat, who whispered her real name when the world was trying to take it from her. Two Hakus, pulling in different directions, and neither one fully in control. Haku, like Chihiro, had lost his name. Yubaba had taken it from him long ago. He couldn't remember who he had been before the bathhouse. Without that memory, he was trapped, bound to the witch, unable to leave, unable to go home, because he didn't know where home was. He could transform into a dragon, a long white serpentine dragon that flew through the sky like a ribbon of moonlight. But even that power felt hollow, because he didn't know where it came from or what it meant. There came a night when Haku, in his dragon form, came crashing through the bathhouse, badly wounded and bleeding, pursued by vicious paper birds enchanted with dark magic. Something had gone terribly wrong on one of Yubaba's errands. The dragon was broken, struggling to fly, trailing blood through the corridors, and Sen found him, and she held him, this enormous, beautiful, broken creature, and she wouldn't let go. She was so small next to him, and she held on with everything she had. Later, much later, after a long journey and many things that happened in between, they were flying together through the sky, and the clouds parted below them, and something stirred in Chihiro's memory. Something from a long time ago, from before any of this, from when she was very, very small. She remembered a river. She had fallen into it as a child, slipped off the bank and tumbled into the water. She was drowning. But something in the river had caught her gently and carried her to the shore. She could feel it even now, across all those years. The sensation of being held by the current, of being carried safely to the edge. And the name of that river was Kohaku, the Kohaku River. "That's who you are," Chihiro whispered. "I remember now. Your name is Kohaku." The river had been drained years ago, paved over. Apartment buildings stood where the water used to flow. A river that no longer existed in the world, but its spirit was still here, trapped in a bathhouse, working for a witch, unable to remember its own name. Until now. The dragon shattered like glass, and inside there was a boy, just a boy, falling through the sky, holding Chihiro's hand, weeping, because someone had finally remembered him. Chihiro returned to the bathhouse. She had been far away, all the way to the cottage of Zeniba, Yubaba's twin, who turned out to be nothing like her sister. Zeniba was warm and kind, with a cozy house in the countryside and a kettle always on. No-Face had stayed there. He had found peace at last, sitting by the fire, learning to knit, as though he'd been doing it his whole quiet life. Zeniba gave Chihiro a hair tie, woven by her friends, as a kind of protection. And now Chihiro was back, standing before Yubaba for the final test. The deal was simple. Yubaba would present a group of pigs. If Chihiro could tell which ones were her parents, the contract would break and they could all go free. If she guessed wrong, she would stay in the spirit world forever. A pen of pigs was brought out, a dozen of them, fat and snorting and shuffling, all looking more or less the same. Every worker in the bathhouse was watching, pressed against the railings, holding their breath. Yubaba smiled her wide, sharp smile. Chihiro looked at the pigs. She looked for a long time. And then she said, "None of them. My parents aren't here." Silence. She was right. It was a trick. Yubaba had never put her parents in the group at all. The contract shattered, The spell broke, and the bathhouse erupted. Every worker, every spirit, every strange creature who had watched this small human girl scrub their floors and face their monsters. They all cheered, even the ones who had been cruel to her, especially them. Haku took her hand and led her away, down through the flower fields, past the meadow, toward the tunnel, toward the human world. But at the entrance, he stopped. He couldn't follow. He belonged to this world, and she belonged to the other, and some distances can't be crossed no matter how much you want to. He told her to go, and not to look back. He said they would meet again someday. And Chihiro walked into the tunnel, and the light changed around her, from the golden glow of the spirit world to the flat, ordinary daylight of a Tuesday afternoon. And she came out the other side, and there were her parents, standing by the car, confused and blinking, as if no time had passed at all. They didn't remember anything, not the food, not the pigs, not any of it. Chihiro got in the back seat of the car. She buckled her seatbelt. She was still holding the hair tie Zeniba had given her. And as the car pulled away, she turned and looked out the back window at the tunnel entrance. Just a dark mouth in an old stone wall, already being swallowed by the trees and the shadows and the long grass. She didn't look scared anymore. Chihiro doesn't defeat anyone. She doesn't fight a great battle or solve an impossible riddle or discover a hidden power inside herself. She survives by being kind, by working hard, by remembering her name when everything around her was trying to make her forget it. She walked into a world that could have swallowed her whole, and she walked out again, and the only weapon she ever had was the stubborn, quiet courage of a 10-year-old girl who simply refused to stop being herself. I think that's what the story whispers to everyone who hears it, whether they're 10 years old or 40 or somewhere in between, lying in bed in the dark, listening to a voice tell them about a girl who wandered into the spirit world and found her way home. Good night.